Hello, and welcome to Fusion Writing, where building character meets creating structure. We're in the month of June, and we have a wonderful set of topics for you this month. And I am going to turn it right over to Victoria to tell us what she's working on this month. Victoria?
So we know from the compass that this month is all about working with narrative distance. What is narrative distance anyway? Well, sometimes it's also referred to as psychic distance. It's simply the way that the reader experiences, whether they are close into the story, like maybe you're speaking from the first person. I experienced this. I was so angry. That's close distance because your reader is right there with you as the author. Then there's a further away distance where maybe you're talking about someone in the third person. John Smith experienced such and such in so and so of a way. That's a much more formal tone, and there's more distance between the reader and this person named John Smith. So that's one key trick that you can use right off the bat, is if you refer to a character using their more formal name, then the reader experiences that distance as further away. But if you say, Sammy Joe was really having a crappy day, that's much more closer because you're using her common name, maybe her pet name or her nickname, and you're leaning into the less formal way of describing her interior state or the situation. Now, I use that word interior because that's the aspect that we're going to focus on for this episode. You've got two main ways of attacking the issue of distance. One is from the interior of a character or a situation, and the other is from the exterior. So what do we mean when we talk about controlling narrative distance using the interior? Well, it's just what I said in the opening. It's letting the reader see what's happening inside that character. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to write from the first person. You don't have to say, I was feeling this and I thought that. You can say, Sally could feel the anxiety rolling up in her stomach. See how that feels? You're still letting the reader know that that's a pretty powerful feeling that's going on, but you're still talking about Sally as someone else and not from the I perspective. So you can still get very close to the interiority of your character, even if you're describing them as someone else. So my assignment to you is to think about this in your own stories. Choose a character that you're very close to, that you know very well who you're writing, and look at the interior. How do they see the world? How do they experience things? Maybe do a little free writing in that character's point of view. And then alternatively, maybe think up another character or look at a character that troubles you a little bit. Sometimes that trouble comes from the fact that you have too much distance between you, the author, and that character. Try to close that distance by looking at them from an interior perspective. This is an exercise that I put in my last newsletter. If you've received that, it's on the way. I ask you to examine looking at a situation from the I. I came home from work and collapsed. And then, if that feels too close or too personal, shift that. Sally came home from work, collapsed on the couch, and was done with the day. Now you've got a little bit of a scene going there. Then you can shift back into the I character and say, I collapsed on the couch and cried in frustrated tears of exhaustion. See how you start with the simple statement, you shift it to another character, the mythical Sally, so that you can flesh it out a little, and then you pull that back in close now that you have those details. So these are some of the ways that you can use the narrator, the point of view, and distance in order to get those scenes fleshed out on the page so that you can ultimately write the scene you want the reader to read. So I'm going to leave you there for today, but next time we're going to tackle the exterior. Kathleen?
Oh boy, that's fantastic. Narrative distance from the interior of the character. Ooh, very cool. Well, the interior of a character is where he's going to experience gratitude. So maybe we can combine them effectively. We'll see when it gets to writing week. Well, right now we're going to explore what do we mean by gratitude. This one is a pretty easy character trait because we've got a pretty good idea of what it means to be grateful. But we're going to take the perspective of the fact that this is an empathy trait. So this isn't really our character sitting alone feeling grateful, although he could, and that's totally fine. But when we're dealing with empathy traits, we're dealing with relationships between characters. So even though the character maybe a gift arrived in the mail from a friend who lives far away, opened it up, and immediately he felt gratitude for this wonderful gift. Well, what's the next thing to do? Jump on the phone? That's so old-fashioned. Probably not. Probably send off a text message. Hey, you want to jump on a Zoom call? And just express the gratitude. So it's gratitude is in the feeling and it's also in the expression. And when we think about the power of gratitude in the story, it's got a very, very strong power. And that is white hat, black hat. I grew up in the 1950s, show my age there. And in the 1950s, if you ever watched a Western, you could always find the good guy. They wore white hats. And you always knew the bad guy. He wore a black hat. And so you could pick the good guy and the bad guy when they were ready to draw their guns in a shootout. You wanted the guy with the white hat to win. Well, gratitude is your easiest approach for identifying to your reader, flagging for your reader, this is a good guy or this is a bad guy. All you have to do is put him in a scene where he ought to feel gratitude, and instead he gives, rah, rah, rah. Oh, bad guy. We know, bad guy. And the character who gets the slightest little thing, a little child offers a dandelion, something trivial. And the character, drops down to the child's level and says, oh, how lovely. Thank you so much. And you know that they're a very good guy and you're just going to want the best for that character. So it's really, really easy to use as a flag. So even if nothing else in your story, that's a terrific way of using it. When we get closer to writing week, we'll talk more about other ways that we can use gratitude in the story. So gratitude begins as a feeling and then it turns into an expression. Well, we can't have a virtue without a continuum where it's lacking. So when might gratitude be lacking? Well, obviously your villain. The villain doesn't have any sense of owing anybody anything, especially not gratitude, and therefore no sense of gratitude there. And so there's your villain in that regard. But there's another group of people, much more common, who are missing that sense of gratitude. It's a problem with youth. Kids, teenagers, they've got to learn gratitude. And sometimes they have to be taught to express the formality of gratitude, even when you really did not want another pair of pajamas for your birthday from your Aunt Sybil. You still say, thank you so much for these splendid Spider-Man pajamas that I outgrew when I was 8 years old. But so that's a group because they don't understand the relationship between what they've been given and how they ought to feel about it. But sometimes adults don't give it that much thought either. Your character drives a car he didn't build. He drives on roads he did not pave. What's the general sense of gratitude that your character has for all of the things that society just gives him ready-made? Or we can bring it closer to home. Is your character aware of the contributions of other people on his team? If he isn't aware of the contributions they've made, he's not going to have a proper sense of gratitude. And that can bring about a lot of conflicts. The secondary character has gone to a lot of effort, but your main character is so concentrated on what he needs to do that he just ignores your secondary character and doesn't give him proper gratitude. What's going to happen next time when he needs that secondary character to come through to him? Your reader is going to go, oh, I wonder if he'll do it. Oh, he didn't get any reward last time. So now you can use gratitude to build tension. So gratitude, even though we understand it quite well from the common sense of the word, we still have to think about it quite a bit in order to be able to use it in the story. Victoria, anything to add?
Oh, as always, somehow it works out. This is fantastic. If you just look at the different ways that someone can look inside and examine their thoughts and turn over their perceptions of things, you can have an entire character arc just by showing someone's transition from more of a selfish state to more of a state of gratitude. Those are the kinds of stories that really resonate because they show the human development and the humanity all encapsulated within a great story. So yet again, we've done it. But the important question is, if people wanted to find us, where might they go?
Come to LiLLiPub. LiLLiPub.org. It's where we hang out when we're not here in YouTube land. LiLLiPub.org, where you can practice your writing and meet in a group on Saturdays and discuss it and get advice for how your writing can be improved. Still only $8 a month, the best bargain in writing training on planet Earth. So come to LiLLiPub.org. See you there. Bye-bye.